What is up, everyone? What is up? Happy Monday. How's it going? It's officially day one of me being a senior cybersecurity engineer. So, yep. So, what are we building? So, we did the physical build of the server yesterday. So, right now, I'm in the middle of having, let me make sure I'm not showing anything sensitive right now. I'm actually going back and forth with Claude, to basically rebuild my proof of concept server. So, for the past few months, if you've been on stream, I've had this little guy here as my proof of concept logging server over here. This is a Purism Libre Mini, little Core i7, 10510U, 32 gigabytes of memory, and I think a 2 terabyte NVMe on here. Nice little guy. But this has been running as my little logging server with plans to be the SIM, the Security Information and Event Monitoring. Well, I've wanted to be making a little bit more powerful logging server that's a little bit more appropriate for it, because that gets a little bit warm, but I've always thought that we could do a little bit better. So yesterday we put together on what was my old firewall, the Supermicro 5019 FTN4, a config. So it has an 8-core Intel Atom Server Edition C3758, 64 gigabytes of DDR4 ECC memory, so it's designed to be much more stable. Quad Intel X553 network interface cards, so we can actually have 4 different Ethernet ports, so I can route it differently, and eventually I could possibly have Docker on that at the same time, depending on the load. But more importantly, I could have multiple disks in there. So what we're actually doing in here a little bit differently is I have 3 different disks in there. So I have the main disk, which is actually SDB over here, which is a 240 gigabyte SanDisk SATA SSD, which was the original SSD that I had when this was a pfSense firewall in there. There were originally 2, and it was a RAID 1, but I physically couldn't fit 2 with the GPU I had to install because the onboard one, for some reason, was having issues, so I had to install a GPU to be able to give a display out. Technically, I could have done this with IPMI, but that's a whole other thing I don't want to go down the road of. But anyway, so the main crux of this is I wanted it to have 2 drives over here. So if you notice, there's data hot and data warm. Now, what does this mean? Well, what's up, Marco? We are gonna have a 1 terabyte NVMe.
Kick ass. I can save money now and everyone can eat. Getting money in the daytime, even counting when I sleep. Wake up, they getting bread, bitch. I do this for the streets. ADHD.
Markov 2200492 just resubbed for 7 months. Hey, hey, hey.
Thank you for that sub there. 7 months, buddy. Appreciate you. Thank you for that prime sub over there. But as I was saying, so we have 2 disks in here on top of the OS disk. So this is just literally gonna sit there just for the operating system. But these 2 disks are where most of the work is going to be. So the NVMe is the hot disk. This is where all the data is going to come in, and it's going to sit on there. So the way that I have it is, I'm still playing around with the metrics of where I'm going to sit it, but like anywhere between the first 7 and 30 days of data is going to house on the NVMe here. Then after that data ages out, instead of it actually getting deleted, it then gets moved over to the warm disk. So it's not cold storage, it's warm. So that way I can still retrieve it because that's a SATA 2 terabyte Samsung 870 EVO and this is a 970 Evo, so these are still relatively fast. That NVMe is coming over a PCI Express X2, so not full bore, but still plenty fast. I did put a heat sink on it, because that's going to be the most well-hit one. And there's a lot of I.O. coming on these disks once they come full bore. But this is eventually going to be the logging server. Waza is going to be installed on top of it, so this will be a logging server. This will be a security information and event monitoring server. So the idea is eventually everything that will be happening on my network and potentially on each device will go into this system so I can start aggregating data. So, yeah. This is where you would do a security analysis. So for a lot of you people that are thinking about doing security operations, security analysis work, this is what you would be doing. It would be, you know, your gray logs, your data dogs, your logarithm, stuff like that. So that's why the name, the server is called LogArithmic. I have fun with naming things. Like, my NAS server is called NAS-T. Get it? Get it? Anyway. So, right now, Claude is helping me set up a lot of this. I've been steering it along the way. It's been deploying the Docker stack, so all of this is in Docker. I have it doing a verification of everything before we start sending all the data over to it. So the plan is all the data is still going to the old box. Then we're going to do a cutover to the new box. And then I'm going to do a migration of all the data from the old box to the new box. So I should have a couple of months of data. Then I'm going to start adding services to that NAS. So I'm eventually going to have a new service in there I've been crafting out, which I still need to fully test, called NetPulse. So this is a speed test runner over here. Just a Python in there. And its job is basically just to do a very basic speed test, like, you know, speedtest.net, but it plots it over time. The reason why is many of you have gotten into arguments with your ISP over, no, my internet is dipping in speed during these times, so why not have it do an internet speed test at an interval, like every 30 minutes or so I can plot my internet speed over time? And this is actually in the past, when I did a much more rudimentary version of this on a Raspberry Pi, gotten me to win arguments with the ISP and gotten them to fix out, send techs out and fix some issues with their lines. What distribution? On the firewall, I'm using Ubuntu 2404. On the desktop, I'm using Pop! OS 2204. I'll move the desktop over to Pop! OS 2604 when it gets released. What's up, Hans? Any truth to the Linux age verification claims for 2027? So far, it's limited to California. I just recorded a video about that a few hours ago. So I gotta edit that video. You're using the mono repo design pattern for your code base? Not really. This is just the source code folder, and it's easier. Each one of these is still a Git repo. These are all separate Git repos. It's just easier for me because I have Claude going in and out and referencing different projects to have access to that one folder and then say, hey, in this folder, access this. Because I don't let it access anything outside the project folder. I allow it limited access. Like you see right now, it's asking permission to run things. So, yeah, I keep it on lock. Why do I use Pop! OS instead of any other distro? Because I like it. It's basic. It works for me. And I've used it for a few years. So there we go. Verification of the health checks. We got our OpenSearch API on the hot disk working. OpenSearch cluster. OpenSearch dashboards. We got our Wazza stack. Grafana, InfluxDB, Prometheus, Logstash, OpenSearch on the hot, the warm, Prometheus, syslog-ng, Unify Polar, Wazza dashboard, Wazza indexer, Wazza manager, disk usage, no ISM policies are set up yet. I gotta do that. So yeah, that's the next thing. So this will probably be a several day process of me building it. OpenClaw? No, we're not doing OpenClaw. This is Claude Opus 4.6 in GitHub Copilot Pro Plus. So I've been doing that way for a few months now. Eventually I will set an OpenClaw instance up. But that'll be more for shits and giggles. Because OpenClaw would burn through tokens, so I'm probably going to end up, when I do have an OpenClaw, having it relegated to a VLAN that it's isolated from, that it can only access on my entire network, the LLM server that I have set up, and I'll probably have it running Olama with the models that it'll have access to. So it won't be able to do, like, Claude and stuff like that. Because that's going to be very expensive if I let that just run amok on tokens. At least for now. And then, down the line, when I get some NVIDIA DGX Sparks, I'll open it up to allow the usage of that with, like, Quencoder and stuff. Uses a lot of tokens very quickly, though. Well, that's why I like GitHub Copilot Pro Plus's model. It's based on requests. So, this all counts as one request that I've done. And it's just iterating through all the tasks. And I get like 1,300, 1,500 requests. But yeah. Separate repos in a same VS Code instance. Yeah, it just makes my life easy. Because, like, all I do is I just CD into the different directories. Alright. I want to see if I can log into it now. Okay, the default credentials are not working, so I have to figure out how to swap them around the Docker Compose. Ah, doi. It is the super secure other default password. Okay, so we've got our Grafana running on the new server. So eventually we'll have the new server running like the old server. So, I didn't show that. Keep up to date with CTI? I have not. So this is the proof of concept server that I've been working on. Let me see if I can get a dashboard over here that doesn't reveal too much. That should be good enough. So eventually, like, this is my pfSense dashboard, part of it. There's a lot more data in there, as I showed yesterday. The Unify Polar video will show a lot more. I'll have a dedicated YouTube video going in to all of this once it's all done. But yeah. What? Oh yeah, this is my home lab. This is the server that I built. I physically built the server yesterday. But now I'm just moving over everything from this little guy, which was my proof of concept for several months for pfSense SimStack. Which, by the way, if you want to replicate what I've been doing on